Welcome to Monster Monday. So last week we covered The Gate. So this week we're covering The Gate 2, Return to the Nightmare. I think on IMDb it says Gate 2 Trespassers. But that does not say it on the VHS here that I have. But there you go. Watching this on VHS definitely reminds me of why I love Blu-ray. The Gate 1 that I have on the Vestron looks fantastic. This looks awful. For some people, that's nostalgic, and they actually like the feeling it gives the film. Not me. Not me. I'd like to, I prefer to actually be able to see what's going on and be able to know what characters look like. To be able to see and appreciate the sets and the special effects and stuff like that. And while, yeah, some movies can actually be hurt by the Blu-ray cleanup, you can actually see the wires and you can see how shoddy the makeup is and all that. I feel like that adds to its charm, as well for me. So I'm much more of a fan of seeing things in HD clarity to where some aren't, and that's okay. Now, this film does have the exact same writer and the exact same director as the first one. And we get a returning character here, Terry, played by the same actor. So this is definitely a direct continuation of the first one. And this one takes place 5 years after, I think, is what I had seen. And this time, Terry goes back to basically exploit the gate to try to make wishes, but then he also warns against this chick that he's into to not make wishes. He's like, no, don't do that, and that's not gonna work. And it's like, okay, A, what are you doing here then? You want it to work. B, right after he tells her that, then she gets this 1962 cherry red Corvette that she was wanting. And as soon as that happens, then he's like, I'm going to wish my dad had his own airline. He goes from like, no, it's not going to work and you shouldn't do that, to I'm going to wish for an entire airline for my father. Well, good thing you didn't do that, because your wishes literally turn to shit, to feces. Like, like the car that she wishes for by the morning is a pile of shit. Although the tires still remain for some reason. So like I get it, it's a visual gag, and they kind of sculpted them, what I'm assuming is like mud, but it's supposed to be shit, into like almost a car shape that's collapsed, and then there's like an emblem in the front of it and the tire, which actually just doesn't line up with the rest of the film, because the rest of the film features like, just shit. Everything turns into just shit. Some things remain. So, because that other guy, Mo, who this is almost like, because it's Terry, and Mo actually refers to him as Larry a bunch in this. So I almost feel like that's a Three Stooges thing. But it's Larry and Mo here. We're just missing Curly. But we get John instead, who end up being the Trinity at the end of this film. Now, as far as the film goes, I thought it was fine. I definitely prefer the first one for sure. It's really just kind of the decision to make Terry the guy. I don't know. I guess it kind of makes sense to a degree, because he is the one that's into demonology. He's the one that's into the occult stuff in the first one. So, and he's the one who figures out how to close the gate, and he's the one that has all kind of that inside info. So, even though it's ill-advised and a lot of people might be like, some people never learn, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that his own desires kind of get the best of him and he makes a poor decision and goes back and tries to exploit and use this thing to his advantage. It might not do a lot for his character in the first film to know that his greed is going to get the best of him, but you know, he has this inside info that might be able to give him what he wants. Now, after having seen what they're wishing for, maybe he makes mention of this and I missed it, but I would think the thing he would want back more than anything would be his mother. And I think that could have made for a really cool scene where his mother comes back and then is literally turning to shit in front of him, and she's screaming like, "What's happening to me? What's happening to me?" And he's like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" And his mom is literally just falling apart and turning into fucking shit. That would have been amazing. That would have been amazing. I think it's a total missed opportunity with this film. I didn't even think about it until right now, but I do think that would have been a really cool sequence and would have played strong to the first one, because in the first one, that's what they use use against him. His dead mom that he misses, and they bring her back to him. But maybe they thought that'd be a rehash, but not if they made it seem like he really believes she was back, and it takes a day or two for this spell to wear off before things turn to shit, literally. I mean, this is totally that whole wish in one hand, shit in the other thing, but literally. And so if it takes a couple days, he would really kind of believe, and if this was the first thing, and then he gets the call from the love interest girl, who's an interesting character. She's actually played by an actress who's been in a ton of things, but the thing I know her best from is she plays Marcy in Californication. She's very pretty, and I do like her in this. She's an interesting character because she's kind of believable in that way of like, she has a thing for her shitty ex-boyfriend, I shouldn't say ex, her boyfriend, who's a total idiot, total bully, piece of shit. But lots of people are into terrible people. And she is into Terry here, or Terrence, but she can't seem to get away from John. And when she runs into him and he's confronting her about like being with Terry, she ends up like kissing him and being like, and it's a genuine moment. It's not like she's just trying to placate, she's not trying to just get him to shut up and go away. You can tell by how the way she's acting, where she's like, "You big dummy," and like, this is genuine, and I think that's super interesting with her character, because they could have just made her typical, where she, realizes that her boyfriend's a dick, and then she's like pushing him away. But she's conflicted. She's genuinely conflicted. Now, us, the audience, can't understand why, because he's awful. But then at the same time, I can't really figure out why she would want Terrence either. But, the heart wants what the heart wants, I suppose. And then his dad is an alcoholic in this, which really lines up with the movie, the first movie, where his wife dies and he just can't take it. So I do like that. The whole, like, he was not taking the job when he comes home, and he's like, "I'm a baggage expediter." And then the next morning he wakes up and is like, "No, I'm a pilot. What are you talking about? We never had that conversation last night." They're actually altering reality. And people's, like, that conversation did happen, but he has no memory of it because the wish has taken over. I don't know. That one doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like he should have been like, "No, I've changed my mind. I do want to fly." And then he gets injured because the guy at the place, that works for the airline is like, "Hey," he's on the phone and he's like, "This guy doesn't have the credentials to fly. He barely has the credentials to even work here, like as a janitor." I'm paraphrasing. I can't remember what job he said, but something along those lines of like, this guy shouldn't be behind the seat in the cockpit. And it's like, That's really screwed up, right? Like this guy gets wished into this job, but he's not qualified to do it and ends up, getting people hurt potentially. And he obviously himself gets really hurt. And I like how the airline is like trying to play damage control, and they like come up to the kid and they're like, hey, we're going to cover 85% of his medical expenses. 85%. They can't just go all the way in. They're all the way at 85, but they're like, no, you got to pay some. So silly. And then yeah, when Terry is in the house trying to summon the gate, and he literally brings like a speaker system with him, and he's kind of like a motivational speaker, or like some pop singer who wears the little headset microphone instead of holding it. And then they walk in on him, and he's like, don't break the circle, and the circle's clearly not a circle, because making a circle with a laser would be like nearly impossible. That whole sequence is kind of funny to me, but then he talks them into it. They just randomly are there, and then they get in on it with him. The characters are fun. You've got the typical characters here. You got the nerd. You got the hot chick who's potentially a love interest for the nerd, and of course he ends up getting her in the end. Then you got the bully dick, and then you got his sidekick. So they're all here. I just feel like the story didn't go in places that it should have went. As I said, like the wishes don't really amount to much. It's like, I want a car. Now he does get his dad hurt, so I like that. But I feel like one of the problems with this franchise, and this is probably the family-friendly PG-13 part of it, but I feel like the message of this franchise, and I was going to say this for the end, but we're here, so let's go for it. I feel like the message of this franchise is like, you can summon demons, and you can play around with demonology and spirits, and you can fuck up, but it's okay. Everything will be fine in the end. Like there's no real consequences in this franchise. Like, yeah, in the first one, their house is messed up and they'll have to answer to it from their parents. But outside of that, I mean, there's like very little consequences. Like, even the dog comes back to life in the first movie. Like, that dog is dead. And other people die as well, and they're brought back. But, like, the dog died, from what I saw, it was, like, natural causes, because it was just weakened from being old. And it's like, no, the dog's okay. And everyone else is okay. And the same is true here. Like, when this is over, Terrence and John and Mo are all fine. As is, the girl. And so is the dad. Now, the dad does have his injuries still, though. He's gotten out of the hospital. He's still wearing crutches, or sporting crutches. So his injuries sustain, but the injuries of them, which is death, aren't. Like, Terrence is totally fine at the end of this movie. But his dad's still on crutches. Like, why is his dad's body not completely mended? Why didn't it reverse all of what happened? Like, that stuff is just, just take a guess, I guess. I don't know how you explain such things, but there's just no consequences in this franchise for these two movies. Now, supposedly there's a third one in the works right now, The Gate 3D. I don't have high hopes for that. I don't have high hopes for that one. I do like the dream where he wakes up on the plane. You think they're on the way to Paris because that's what she wishes for. And then he goes up into the cockpit and his dad is like super drunk and like wind is blowing everywhere and he's like laughing. And then when he wakes up, his dad is actually injured from a plane injury. So I liked that scene, even though I usually don't like dream sequences. I thought it fit. I thought it fit the story and the tone. And then it does have consequences because when he wakes up from it, something has actually happened, right? Like one of the reasons I don't like dream sequences is because they're fake outs, only there to add scares into the film and then get to take them back so that the story isn't amped up to that area, because once the chaos starts, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, right? So like the main characters can't find out there's a killer after them. Certain characters can't die. Oh, but we can have dream sequences where they do, and we can trick the audience and we can throw a cheap fake scare in there to kind of keep them interested, because a lot of people in the audience are there for scares. And we can't scare them yet, because if they're privy to what's going on, then a lot of them, then we have to explain why they're not leaving. We can't have like subtle moments anymore where there's creepiness of people like looking, like thinking that maybe someone's watching. No, now things are elevated. Now things are ramped up. Now someone's been brutally murdered. Main character's been killed off or something. But no, just kidding. It's a dream sequence. Oh, there's nothing. They wake up and everything's fine. That's not what happens here, right? He wakes up from this dream sequence, and there is consequences to it. Now, in the end, there's very little consequences. Although his dad is still on crutches, so I guess his dad, does have to deal with his wounds mending, but very minor in contrast to the death of his son. And then the fact that Mo and John are also in his casket only speaks to the fact that they were like eradicated, right? Like there was no bodies for them, which I don't really understand. Why could they find Terrence's body but not John and Mo's? Why don't they have their own funeral? But I guess it would be hard, because then how would they explain? Not even explain, but it would be hard to show 3 different funerals, because why would they be being buried together? But you could have it in the same funeral plot, but like probably just to save on budget, they're like, well, just put them all in the same casket. Like they'll just all crawl out of there. It's fantasy anyway, so what does it matter? That's fine. But yeah, there's no consequences, as I said. And the Joe, I keep saying Joe, John and Mo going to the fancy restaurant, ordering all this escargots and whatnot that they order, or goes. Does he say escargots? He says it incorrectly. I forget how he says it, but it's funny. And then when he goes to pay the bill, he pulls out all these hundreds, because they trapped the minion of the movie. We only get one in this. And he like throws it on there, and that it's gonna happen. He just throws it on the check, and it's like shit on there. And then he like tries cleaning the check off. At that point, you just gotta run. You just gotta dine and dash, which is what they're expecting to do. So they probably got people at the door. And the music box breaking Terrence out of this spell is fine, but then them throwing the little minion into the gate, and that's what ends up closing it and saving them all from damnation. This is weak. This is so weak. Like, just one little minion thrown into the abyss with inside a music box. Like, that's it? That's how you beat it this time? Like, why didn't he close it before? Like, he already knew how to close it. He closed it in the first movie. Why would it be different now? Like, he was the guy with the inside info. He's the one that should be able to open and close it at will. He's already done it. So this time it's totally different. Whatever. They always got to change it up because they can't do the same thing, right? And so he does get the chick in the end, and then even though John physically beat him up, because he still wants Liz. I've been calling her the girl this whole time. Her name is Liz, sorry. Terrence gets Liz, and then John comes out and is talking to Mo, and he's just, he looks over and he sees them together, and he's just like, who needs chicks when you got demons? I don't know what this means. I don't know what this line means. Is he wanting to go try to find more demons to get with? Like, did he not learn from his mistakes, or does he was a demon? Like, they all turned into demons, so now, like, he prefers the feeling of being a demon and wants to be one again, and is going to go seek that. Like, I don't understand who wants chicks when you got demons. What does that line mean? I didn't understand. And his friend laughs and they run off. The friend with a hole in his heart. When John was trying to take his medication to get high, and he was like, dude, I need that for my heart. And he's like, oh, my heart, my heart. Who could possibly hang out with someone like that? What should have happened is Mo should have wished for a new heart, and then his heart literally would have started to turn to shit inside his body, and he would have been vomiting up shit as his heart collapsed and failed on him because it was turning to shit. That would have been awesome. See, this is all missed opportunities here. And then Liz, her car should have been turning to shit as she was driving it. And like the steering wheel was like melting in her hand, and she was like falling into the ground. She was speeding, and like tires were coming off, although that would have been expensive, right? But you could have shot it in a clever way. So I don't know. And yeah, I think that's about all I got to say about it. Overall, it's an okay story. It was cool seeing the original guy back. The original director and writer being here, I just feel like I shouldn't be able to come up with better things on the fly off the top of my head while I'm in the middle of doing a review. Like, to me, I feel like that just shows that they either just didn't think they had the budget to pull off what they wanted, or they didn't put a lot of thought into it. I don't know. Otherwise, it's okay. It's okay. It's an okay follow-up. But have you seen it? What'd you think? Do you like it better than the first one? I don't know how. The first one's really great. And it's really good. But let me know. Have you ever seen it? Did you even know it existed? All right. Adios.